I stopped drawing for 5 years, and my drawings went from this to this. But I got over it and even landed a job within a year. After that, I got several art blocks here and there, but none of them lasted as long because now I know how to avoid them and how to get out of them if they do happen. So continue watching and I will tell you everything I know about art blocks. Hi, I'm Darana and I'm a concept artist and illustrator, and I've been drawing my whole life. Well, except for those 5 years, where I even forgot that I considered myself an artist. But how did it happen? How a person who drew since they were a kid and were telling everyone that they will become an artist one day just stop drawing and forget that they even considered themselves an artist? Well, pour yourself some tea. I have a story to tell. As already said, I was the artist in the family. Everyone knew that and encouraged that, thankfully. I went some art classes for kids here and there, and I was determined to become an artist, even though I had no idea what it means when I grew up and what school I need to apply to. Then, a huge thing happened that turned my life upside down. My family moved from Russia to Sweden. And I also became a teenager, which didn't help. My mental health was on the edge because of it, and drawing became my coping mechanism. I leaned into my artistic identity and started to draw even more intense, and I guess it's not surprising to see what kind of drawings came out of 16-year-old me. Several years has passed, and it was time for me to move out from my parents on my own and go to high school. But then another huge thing happened that turned my life upside down. I met my ex-husband. So instead of applying to college and moving out, I moved in with him in another city. Being in love acted as some kind of painkiller for my constant anxiety. So drawing turned from being therapeutic into being a performance. When I attempted to draw in that period, my focus was on the result and not the process. I wanted to produce something beautiful instantly and show it to everyone to prove that yes, I'm an artist. I wanted to get validation, and naturally I failed, because that's what happens when you're very ambitious but your skills are lacking, especially if you can't handle the ugly stage of drawing, and unfortunately I couldn't. Every time I drew, it was torture. I hated the process because I wanted a pretty picture instantly and I couldn't get it. I was so frustrated with drawing that I stopped to draw altogether. 5 years later, I realized that I have a kid, no job, no education, and I spent the last couple of years playing. Something had to change. So after some introspection and research, I found out, or I would say realized, that all the art in games is actually made by actual people and they get paid for that. And then I also remembered, wait a minute, I think I used to draw back in the days. So that was it. That was my ticket to the bright future. And I had to start drawing. I finally figured out what I wanted to do with my life, and there was no way out of it. I wrote a plan, and the first thing there was to reincarnate my drawing skills. So I started drawing again. I was determined for a long game. Actually, in my original plan, I expected it to take me around 5 years to get a job. So I got to work. Did I enjoy the drawing process? Hell no. In fact, I absolutely hated it for the first 6 months or so. Sometimes I literally cried out of frustration, but I continued through that because I had this big goal in mind and I believed that it will feel better sometime, and it actually did. I started to enjoy the process itself and it felt less and less painful with time. Sometimes I even liked my drawings. To find motivation and topics to draw, I participated in different challenges. I drew my daughter a lot. I also drew a lot of pictures to my family members as gifts.
Many months later,
I drew almost daily and posted everything on the social media just to get myself going. One day, in less than a year, I got a job offer to start working as a game artist in a mobile startup company, which is insane and a story in itself. So subscribe to this channel to get to hear the story in my next video. This is all cool and well, but why the hell the art blocks happen? Behind every art block is a fear of failure, and fear of failure is fear of rejection, something that is deeply rooted in our human nature. Back in the days in hunter-gatherer society, rejection meant death. And of course, we live in a modern world, but our brain is practically the same. And it's very natural to be afraid of drawing if you connected drawing with fear of death in your mind. Another reason for an art block is when you draw too much without any breaks or variety. For example, when you have very big projects and you just have to work. However, it's important to differentiate between burnout and art block. These two conditions can feel very similar, but in fact, they're very different in its core. They have different reasons and they have different recovery strategies. Art block is when you don't feel like drawing, when everything you draw looks like shit and it feels like you have no imagination now whatsoever. It's incredibly hard to get yourself to draw and you hate the process even more than usual, but the rest of your life is unaffected and you feel fine. Burnout, on the other hand, is when you feel exhausted and you don't have energy for anything anymore. It's when even fun feels overwhelming and all you want to do is just lay in bed and do nothing. Burnout is affecting every part of your life and not just creative process. If you feel something like that, be cautious. Drop as much responsibility and work as you can. Take a vacation and just rest. Lay on the couch and do nothing for a while. Because if you push yourself long enough, you will get into real clinical burnout. And getting out of there can take you several years. Unfortunately, I've been there. It took me 4 years to recover, and some people never get out of it. Check out my video about my story. Burnout is avoidable only through rest. So if you feel like it's crawling up on you, rest as much as you can, as soon as you can. So now when we know the difference between art block and burnout, I will share several ways I found helpful to get myself out of it every time it happened, and especially the big one. First, stop drawing as much as you did prior to art block and just do something that is going to refuel your inspiration, like playing games, watching movies, going on walks, meeting friends, and just reading books. Yes, I know, I say that you have to draw every day, which is true, but the rest recovery just as important as progress. Because if you don't rest, your productivity drops. Second, try to disconnect your value as a person from your creations. This can be done in several ways. For example, by not showing your art for a while, or destroying your creations after you're done with them. Yes, I'm not kidding. Another thing you can do is to draw something ugly on purpose, and it's a fun one. You can do it by drawing with your non-dominant hand, or draw without looking at the paper, or draw something with a single continuous line, or use any other playful drawing method. You need to get away from the pressure of performance and delivering and let yourself be silly and playful and carefree when you create. Try a different drawing medium just for the fun of it. It can be anything you haven't tried before. Creating illustrations from paper cutouts, it can be sculpture, it can be any new paint, graffiti, or even kids' crayons. Experiment a lot without any intention to deliver or produce anything. Just play with it. By the way, write me in the comment down below what new media are you going to try. Hope this video helps you understand the difference between art block and burnout and what to do next. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to this channel and like the video if you did, and I'll see you in the next one. Time has passed, several years have passed. Just stop drawing and forgets that they even consider themselves an artist. Scroll. The breast. Or even kids' crayons. I guess I need to wake up at 4 in the morning or something to record.